Hey, welcome back, or welcome if you're new. I'm Monica Martini, your host, and here we have a video analysis on finances. I know, how attractive. We shall discuss today what the hell is financial illiteracy, what does that mean, why do I care, why you should care. You know, if once I did a video about how are we getting smarter, today I really want to ask, are we dumb? Nah.
Coming out my throat. Guess I better wash my mouth out with soap. I feel it coming out my throat. Guess I better wash my mouth out with soap. God, I wish I never spoke. Now I gotta wash my mouth out with soap.
This all began when I heard some news about Portugal, my own country. Not the best. Portugal occupies the last position in the financial literacy ranking of the 19 countries of the Eurozone in 2020. According to the chart, with data from 2020, at the top of the ranking are the Germans, Dutch and Finns, and at the bottom are the Portuguese, Cypriots, and Italians. Yikes. Anyways, Portugal. It's okay. We're gonna dig into this, and what does that mean? Basically, I was just curious. Even though it was not surprised, I was like, okay, but like, why? Why are we the worst, and why are other countries like so bad as well that I did not expect? And honestly, how? How the hell can those other countries at the top do so? Like, what is happening? What are we missing? What can I do to make it better? What can you do if you're from one of these countries? I don't know. Let's get into that. First things first, what does it mean financial literacy? Basically means having a basic knowledge of finances, personal finances, budgeting, investment, inflation, GDP, whatever the term is in your country. Mine is different. Savings accounts, and you get the gist. And number two, why or what is the main reason that people or countries have citizens with not that knowledge? So with lack of knowledge of finances and economy in general. So there are obviously more than one factor. So there are a lot of factors, but the main keeps being education. Honestly, there's no way around it. It is lack of education in schools, primarily, around economy, around finances, and as seen from many studies, actually most people from all over the world live above their means. They spend more than what they have in store, saved, or that they're making. And these little, very big mistakes are basically what are contributing for more debt, and this is obviously at an individual's level, but then actually this can expand to affect the whole country. And so your country's economy will be affected by how financially literate you and your peers are. So who is ranking higher and why? What are they doing differently? I have data from both 2014 and from 2020, I believe, and I'm gonna show you here a map, but the results are in Australia, Canada, Finland, Germany, Israel, the Netherlands, Sweden, and the United Kingdom are the most financially literate nations in the world. Also, some Asian countries actually have really good numbers for this, but just not as good as this. For example, Singapore is actually ranking really high in financial knowledge, and of course their economy is actually really good as well, but this will be explored more in depth as I go along. So even though it's hard to pinpoint the causation, it's mostly thought that the free market and dynamic economy that these countries at the top do have a very good contribution for the knowledge that people have of finances. Not only because people are generally actively involved in the industry, as in business and in savings, and also because there's a lot of incentive from the government, mainly from Northern Europe. I have this knowledge that when you finish high school, for example, you are given a certain amount of money so you can spend for like a year, and then you can actually pay it back, and you will not pay any taxation on this as long as you eventually pay it back after a certain amount of years. This is a really good incentive for people to have more freedom, but also a lot of more responsibility when it comes to their personal finances, and as soon as they turn 18. Of course, education, as I said, plays a really big role in this. So not only are these people involved the way that I've just explained, but it seems that there's also more of an open conversation between peers and family members. So in not only in school they are educated in terms of finances and economy, but at home it's kind of like encouraged as well, this type of conversation. But then I was also curious, other than education, and because this is such a really big thing, but not the only one, what else is different from the countries that are at the bottom and the countries that are at the top? My second question would be then if this can be related to the leftist views of politics and governments that have more of a leftist tendency. And again, I'm referring to the American terminology here. Here in Portugal, we usually don't use these terms like this, or at least they have different meanings, but for the audience here to understand, the leftists would be more socialists, communists, other than capitalists that are usually seen as more conservative and conservatives and the right wing. Recently, you've probably seen that, again, capitalism is really being trashed, and people are pointing out a lot of mistakes, a lot of gaps that are in the system, which I do not deny there exist. Of course, they are there. But at the same time, they're kind of raising their voices to come and defend more socialist and communist views. And surprise, surprise, capitalism and communism are not that simple. It's not that simple of a topic to just break it down and just say if one is broken, that means the other one should be probably the best. So this is way more complex than it sounds, and I'm not going to make a video right now distinguishing what capitalism and communism and socialism is. This will be a whole different video on its own, but for now what I want to say is in terms of economy that socialists look for a more even market, less disparity between the poor and the rich, and more government intervention. And so there are some ceilings on profits that corporations can make and even the decisions that they can make. And of course, all of this sounds really, really good because we do want all of these things. These things that I've just listed are honestly not bad at all, right? Kind of sounds like the dream. However, when this is implemented, just like I said, turns more into something that we wouldn't expect. We have a lot of control being imposed by the government, and so this is when things go a bit nuts. Basically the utopian system that we would all love to see implemented, but it kind of seems really hard time and time again to see the theory put into practice and not being abused in terms of power. As one expert said, socialism produces economy and political inequality as the rulers turn into gangsters. A system that begins in high idealism ends in corruption, dishonesty, oppression, and distrust. So how is capitalism helpful in financial education? So given the fact that socialism is a bit messy, just like I've explained, how is capitalism able to rise above all of this and actually make citizens more informed? Or does it? Or maybe it really doesn't. Capitalism has indeed have been contributing to steady growth, lower inflation, higher employment, and actually being able to rise wages of poors. And of course, this is information from mostly American society, so their own government and system. But I do have to say that this generally would apply to European countries and even Asian countries where we see capitalism really thriving. Even though this system, it is not perfect, as I just explained, these problems are not signs that capitalism is broken. They are signs that we need more and better capitalism. We need a massive infusion of money and reform into our education systems from infancy through life. Human capital building is like nutrition. It's something you have to attend to every day. We need welfare programs that not only subsidize poor people's consumption, but also subsidize their capacity to produce. So from what I see, because of its dynamics, capitalism demands that people actively participate in the economy. Because they have so much incentive to get a profit out of it, they actually go out of their ways and take a personal interest in studying and not only depending on public systems, but also personal research and education to understand and better take advantage of the system. So this is also what happens in America. Even though they're not the ones at the top 10, I would say, I don't think they're top 10, they have around 55% of people that are actually literate in this. It's already a really good number given their huge economy, and of course they need more work, but it's already better than, Portugal. So in communist and socialist societies, what happens is, even though the theory is to help the poor and tax on the rich and take a bit from the rich as well, this actually ends up not happening at all, because the government has such a powerful intervention in corporations. It kind of cuts the dynamics of the economy and monopolizes everything, so that people actually end up owning little to nothing. And so therefore, if everything is basically taken and then distributed by the own government, then that means that we as citizens, we have no power and no intervention and independence when it comes to our finances. We completely and entirely depend on the system. There's no way around it. There's no way we can make our own profit grow with or without a ceiling. There's just not opportunity for this. I think that maybe they're just promoting, this type of system is promoting that sit back and relax attitude. But as a consequence, when you relax, it because you think that they will provide everything that everyone needs, the basic needs, plus a little bit, you actually see your power being taken away as well, which is honestly no news for us. But this is what happens. So I actually did a little bit of more research on this, and I found a study that was around German reunification. So basically East and West Germany, and how people would be more financially knowledgeable or not, according to the Cold War consequences, long-term consequences. And this was basically a natural kind of event. It is well known that East and West Germany experienced a quite divergent political and economic history during the Cold War. And such different history has hugely influenced the current development of two regions in a wide variety of areas. So basically they've concluded that being exposed to socialist education lowered current time financial literacy of German households. Of course, this was treated as a natural experiment where the data and the subjects were not actually controlled by the people studying, but they were just a natural occurrence. So there's a lot of factors that they could not study further, but there's been a lot of papers and studies on this, because it is indeed super interesting. What are the consequences of the Cold War? And according to the systems that these two sides were under, there actually is noticeable a different level of education of finances. So, as I just said, the ones being exposed to socialist views were the ones more impacted, and they didn't have as much knowledge. Of course, this does not mean it's because of the way they run the system, but I would say there's honestly nothing much that would vary from one system to the other, and the things that I've posed before in this video actually would make a lot of sense for this to be a reason. So again, whether you're left or right, it doesn't really matter here. Again, I don't subscribe to American terms. It's just a way to make it more understandable for you on that side and for me to come across. But what I mean is, what I was trying to pose is the fact that if we are truly super dependent on the system, whether that be for good or bad intentions, as in imagine socialism, the utopian system is actually implemented in a country. And it goes pretty well in the sense that everyone has free access to education, housing, and healthcare, and a job. That does not mean that the financial literacy would be completely unnecessary. I think this is this is an area of our lives that we should really take accountability for and a lot of responsibility. Even I personally don't believe that socialism, or in this case, it's more like a communist system, would be the best that I would want to live in. But even if it was, I think economy and finances is still a thing that we should have a knowledge of. So I think this just exposes how Of course, when we take something for granted because someone is handling it for us, we again sit back, relax, and we just wait for the money, for the profit, for the food, for the free stuff to come. And however, if the system ever breaks, what are we going to do? How can we take charge of our own lives if this such big part of it is completely controlled by someone else and we have no knowledge of it? So basically, this is what I was trying to expose in this video. I didn't reach like a big conclusion on this. I think I might have like good points here, but it would need further exploration. But anyways, let me know what you think. If you ever thought about it like this, if capitalism, it is the big monster that people say it is. If it is broken, is it repairable? And also, is a video on capitalism and socialism and communism something that you would be interested in? Let me know. So this is what I have for you today. I would really love to hear your thoughts and comments on this. This is Monica Martini signing off, and until next time, think for yourselves, guys.